Kick-ass facts! This is the last one on outdated medical procedures. Pew, 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 pew! Cutting teeth isn't just an expression. Children frequently died at 6 months to 2 years of age, which coincidentally was around the time their first teeth were coming through. The medical minds at the time didn't think this was a coincidence, so they concluded that the process of teething was also the cause of infant death. In England and Wales in 1839, for instance, over 5,000 deaths were attributed to teething. Even by 1910, the figure was 1,600. Unfortunately for children involved, they developed a wide array of interventions, including bleeding, blistering, and placing leeches on the gums. In some cases, they even burned the back of a baby's head. In 1575, a French army surgeon began cutting the gums of children with a knife so that the teeth would come in more easily, and this became the preferred method. Unfortunately, they did not use sterile equipment. Adding that to the trauma, it was not unusual for children to die after this treatment. Cigarettes used to be sold with health claims attached. It'll cure hay fever and other fevers. Craven A, made specifically to prevent sore throats. Lucky Strike claimed their cigarettes could help a woman lose weight, and Camels said they aided in digestion. Doctors thought that asthma was caused by nervousness or excitement, and this would lead to spasms in the bronchial tube, so they recommended smoking cigarettes. In 1946, a doctor told my grandmother that smoking would cure my dad's nosebleeds. So at 8, he started smoking. I mean, he didn't get a lot of nosebleeds after that, but he smoked like a pack a day for 70 years. Neurasthenia was a catch-all diagnosis for a host of non-psychotic emotional disorders that were not understood and not responsive to medical therapies. A treatment was designed for neurasthenics who were described as nervous women who as a rule are thin and lack blood. The cure, prescribed almost exclusively for women, had 3 core elements: isolation, rest, and feeding, with electrotherapy and massage added to counteract muscle atrophy. The rest cure was the act of confining women to bed for 2 months in the exact same position, with a special nurse who would sleep in a cot in her room. The nurse would feed her and keep her mind from morbid thoughts by reading aloud or discussing soothing topics. Visits from family and friends were forbidden. The day was punctuated by electrotherapy and massage, sponge baths with a rough rub using wet sheets, and frequent feedings. The diet consisted of milk alone for the first week, or if milk was not tolerated, 18 or more raw eggs per day. The patient would pass into a state of placid contentment described by several textbooks. The brain work having ceased, mental expenditure is reduced to a slight play of emotions and easy drifting of thought. When restlessness set in, exercise would be gradually introduced and the patient would eventually resume communication with family and return to a healthy lifestyle. Healthy for women included strict limits on brain work, which imposed nervous strain and might interfere with womanly duties. In the late 19th century, milk was believed to be the perfect substitute for blood, and milk transfusions were used to treat anemia based on the belief that the milk could directly enter the bloodstream and the fatty, oily qualities in milk would become white blood cells. In one instance, the injection of milk dropped the patient's pulse immediately to the point where they had to be resuscitated with a combination of morphine and whiskey. I mean, it would work for me, I'm sure. The patient only lived 10 days after the operation. In 1899, the Pacific Commercial Advertiser, a newspaper out of Honolulu, reported about a hotel in Australia where you could go for rheumatoid arthritis treatments. In the whale cure for rheumatism treatment, whenever a nearby whale died, patients would be rowed to the whale, then a narrow hole would be made in the whale and the patient would lay down in the carcass for 2 hours. This process allegedly relieved soreness and inflammation. The treatment was reported to be discovered by a drunken man who was staggering along the beach near the whaling station of Twofold Bay and who, seeing a dead whale cut open, took a header into the decomposing blubber. In ancient Rome, people thought they could treat rabies by having the wound cut open and covered with raw veal. Then the patient would eat a diet of lime and hog's fat, and then the patient would drink a concoction made with wine and boiled badger dung. A Roman physician in the 3rd century CE told malaria patients to write abracadabra over and over again on a piece of paper with 1 fewer letter on each line. Abracadabra, abracadabra, abracadab, you get it. Until the letters formed a triangle with just an A at the bottom. Then they had to tie the paper with flax and wear it around their necks for 9 days before tossing it into an east-running stream. If that didn't work, they were supposed to rub themselves with lion fat. A ganglion cyst, also called a Bible cyst, is a fluid-filled lump below the surface of your skin that appears on or near joints and tendons. They usually don't cause any symptoms and often disappear on their own. However, in 1743, the cure for Bible cysts was to strap a bullet that killed an animal to the cyst, or touch it with a dead man's hand, or hitting it with a heavy book. They called Bible cysts because they recommended the Bible as a good book to hit them with because it's so big.